Major Don Thomas, United States Air Force, Vietnam. Folks, great story here. I interviewed Don in Cottonwood, Arizona. It was October 28, 2013. I was there for several days interviewing veterans of all wars. I went there twice actually with my work. I actually did a 9/11 presentation there, and I think we did a couple of school presentations too and some interviews. But Don was drafted in 1968. He was 69 years old at the time I interviewed him. You think he's 81 now, do the math. And went to Vietnam in the spring of 1970, was the commander of a C130 transport aircraft, 4-engine transport aircraft used in Vietnam a lot for transporting troops, supplies. They took out wounded, the medevacs, acted as a medevac flight, and a lot of other things. So Don's going to tell it to you. 20-year career for him in the Air Force, and he do it just so relaxed. You'll hear him. Such a down-to-earth guy, relaxed story, and hopefully you're going to enjoy it too. His time in Vietnam, his eyes and ears of what happened when he was there. Very, very interesting story. So happy to share it with you today here. I want to thank Julie Butler. Julie's been helping support some of my stories, and was a great friend of Mitchell Young before he passed away, and actually got to see him. So Julie, thank you. I appreciate you so much. Look in this camera, say thank you for supporting this work and helping me to get these stories out there. And I just say God bless you, and I hope to keep working with you, Julie. Thank you. I want to mention Denny Farrell. Denny is the man who did a video a while back called The Flag. It's a really great 3-4 minute video with a song called The Flag. I told him I would share it. Flag Day is the 14th of June, coming up here in about 4 days. Today's the 10th of June as I record this. And I'm going to put this link again in my video description. So Denny, it's going to be in there so people can see it. Right under this video, the video description, you can include that information. So I'm going to put that there. And like I've told people, we don't worship the flag, but the flag symbolizes and represents all that our veterans have done, the blood that they shed, and just the fact that they're woven into the cloth of that flag. It makes it very, very important, folks, and known around the world, and when we get in trouble, we look at that flag. It gives us strength. Yes, it does. Okay, thank you for watching and listening to these broadcasts. These are all going on Voices of History Radio when they air here. So Don's story will be on Voice of History Radio. By the way, he flew with the 41st Squadron and the 62nd Squadron, which I believe was part of the 314th Air Wing in Vietnam. But like I said, just a great story. Let's just honor him here with this story and this interview. And again, thank you for watching, listening, and subscribing to this channel. If you want to become a part of this ministry, this outreach, which it is, there's information in the video description and on my website, larrycapetta.com, and in the comments section. So if you want to help partner with me and help share some of these stories or help me to do that, it'd be greatly appreciated, folks. It's a labor of love. It's continuing into this 23rd year. So I just thank God. Like I said, I can serve him and my country through the lens of my camera. So, all right, folks, enjoy Don's story. I'll talk to you next time. And God bless you. Apologize ahead of time for that, but can I ask you how old you are now, Don?
69.
Okay, what year did you enter the military?
68.
Okay, wow. That was right when Vietnam was really rolling, huh?
Really rolling, yeah.
So how old were you then when you entered the military?
Oh, 23 or 24, something like that. 25.
Were you drafted? Did you join?
Oh, yes.
Drafted.
That's kind of an interesting story, too.
What
I was in college, and so I had the student deferment. And when I got out, but I knew I was going to have to go in. As soon as I was out of college, I was going to get drafted. I knew that. So I started looking at all the services, deciding where I wanted to go. And I chose the Air Force and did all the testing and the physical and all that stuff before I ever graduated from college. And went to the local draft board. At that time, they were local and they knew you, and it was over in Prescott. And I knew them, they knew me. So I went over and told them I was already accepted to OTS, Officer Training School, and just leave me alone for a few months. My date didn't come up till the end of the summer, and this was in the spring. I graduated, of course. And so I was sitting here in Cottonwood at home with my parents' house, just killing time waiting to go in, and I got a draft notice one day. Told me to come right in a couple of weeks. So I went trotting over to Prescott real quick, said, "What's going on?" And they told me that an inspector came and looked at it and said, "You can't do that. You got to go ahead and draft him when his time comes up. You can't hold off like that." And so I went down the day before I was supposed to show up for the draft. I went down and swore into the Air Force. So my first 3 weeks in the Air Force, I was in basic training, like everybody else, in a training squadron, and then I went over to OTS. It was all at San Antonio at the time. So anyway, that's the story on that.
So you're flying planes, helicopters, what?
I was flying C130s.
Okay. Transport?
Yes, it's a 4-engine transport. The smallest 4-engine one they have is turboprop.
Did you end up going to Vietnam?
Yes. I did the pilot training in Del Rio, Texas, Laughlin Air Force Base, and ended up in Vietnam in the early spring of 1970. I got out of pilot training in December and took the holidays off and did all the survival schools and the training into the airplane, transition training into the airplane, and got over there around in May, something like that, of 1970, to the Philippines. We were stationed in the Philippines, and we did all our flying in Vietnam out of Cam Ranh Bay, but we'd go there TDY for anywhere from 14 to 18 days at a time and fly out of Cam Ranh Bay.
Was it like a year tour like most of the people?
It was 2 years.
2 years.
Because we weren't 100% of the time in Vietnam. As it turned out, it just depended on how many planes they needed, what was going on in country. You could end up a total of a year in country and 2, or maybe a little less. But anyway, it was 2 years.
Did you get into combat at all?
Around, the story I always tell is I never got shot at, or if I did, they missed and I didn't see the bullet go by. So no airplane I was ever on was ever hit. And Cam Ranh was shelled a couple of times when I was there, and so was Da Nang one night when we were up there. But as far as anybody shooting at our airplane, not that I know of.
So what troops are you transporting, and are you taking them to a station, and not into combat, but tell me about the troops you transported.
Well, it's American and
South Vietnamese?
South Vietnamese, which is ARVN, I think, or Army of Republic of, yeah, ARVN. And C-130s are called trash haulers because we take anything that needs to go anywhere. So we carried troops, we did air evac, bringing the wounded back out or whatever. We carried ammunition, we carried food, jeeps, trucks. We took a load of used truck tires to Singapore one time for, mine went blank. What's the term? They put new tread on them? Recaps? Yeah, we took a load of tires down there for recap. Just whatever needed to go somewhere, we took it. Animals, people.
So what part of the crew are you?
Pilot.
Okay. So you're the commander?
You start out as a co-pilot and you eventually work up to aircraft commander, yes.
So at that time, at your age, are you thinking, some of these guys may die someday, or are you just doing your job, or what type of thoughts did you have back then, what you're doing? And bringing the wounded back, were you curious as how they were wounded, or anything like that?
Oh, not too much.
You're just kind of working. You're just doing your
Yeah, you're working. You can get all philosophical and do all that kind of stuff if you want to, but I was just doing it with, when I was in college, there was college campuses, of course, were hotbeds of protests, and I was up at Flagstaff at NAU, and it was such a small school. We had our share of activists and people who wanted to protest, but it's just such a small student body that was 10 maybe. A big university to have hundreds that wanted to do that. We had so few that nobody paid any attention to them. But it was in the news, and we read about it, and we talked about it. So I was pretty well settled in my own mind, I guess, as you want to put it, that we were there. I had to go, so I went. One of the things is I got married while I was in pilot training that following year, and I had high enough in my graduating class of pilot training that I pretty much was able to choose what airplane I wanted, an assignment, and I took that one because everybody had to go for a 1-year tour in Vietnam. You've probably got all of that already from other people, but everybody had to go, and I could go to some other airplane with a stateside assignment, but within a year or two, I was going to have to go to Vietnam in whatever airplane was available to go to Vietnam. So I went ahead and took that right away before I had any kids to worry about, figuring if I got killed, she at least wouldn't have kids to worry about. So there's always a possibility of that, of course. And little side thing, most deaths in war is a result of accidents or disease versus enemy action. So yeah, I could have a crash and be killed, or at any time, you never know. So it's not that I expected to get shot or something, but still it could happen. So I wanted to get that over with before I had kids.
Did you lose any friends or people?
Just one.
Military?
Yeah, just one. One of the guys in our pilot training class, and it was an accident. He flew his airplane into the ground at night. He didn't get shot or anything. It just, that happens.
You think his name's on the wall?
Oh, I know it is.
Have you been there?
No, when they brought one here, they have a portable one they take around, and we specifically went down and looked at it because my wife was a friend with him too. So.
Is that a moving, emotional time for you, or?
A little bit, not much really. I'm not. That's just my personality. Yeah.
So how long were you in the military total?
20 years.
20 years. You said you did a career.
You really want this story?
Well, no, I just was curious. I didn't realize you're in that.
Yeah. I never intended to be that long.
Okay.
I got drafted and I had to, even though I was going to volunteer and go anyway, I knew I was going to get drafted. So yeah.
So back to getting drafted now. You were how old when you were drafted? About?
Out of college.
Oh, you were out of college.
Well, I graduated from college. Yeah.
So you couldn't get drafted while you were in college?
No, they had a student deferment.
Right.
As long as you're in college, you just.
So you knew it was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, at that time, are you full of piss and vinegar? You're just going to go out and do it and whatever.
Not.
Were you scared at all, or?
No, not scared or apprehensive at all. But
ever been around the world like that before?
No. Like I said, I went and I checked all the services out of curiosity which one I wanted to go into because I knew I had to go, and I chose the Air Force for the specific reason I wanted to see the world. And I chose the airplane I did because I could fly around the world. And everybody wants to be a fighter pilot. And the trouble was, after I looked into it, they don't go anywhere. They take off from their base, and they go out and either do bombs or air-to-air or whatever for an hour and a half, and they come back and land at the same base. And if they go across country to somewhere else, that is a big deal, because they just don't do it very often. And I didn't want to do that. I grew up in Arizona, and we never went anywhere. We didn't take vacations growing up, so I'd never been anywhere else. I'd never even been to Mexico or the Grand Canyon. And yet I grew up here. So I wanted to travel and see around. And when we put in requests for bases and assignments, nobody pays attention, but they let us. So the training bases were all across the southern United States. So I put in for Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and finally there was one down in Arizona and near Phoenix. There was a training base, and I ended up in West Texas, which is I wanted to see the South. It didn't work that way.
It's kind of interesting question, curiosity question, but when you're wanting to become a pilot, your vision has to be good, right?
Oh yeah.
2020?
2020.
What if it's 2030? You can't do it?
Can't do it, yeah.
So that's uncorrected? 2020 uncorrected?
Yes, uncorrected, yeah.
Back then, is it like that today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you still have to.
Have you maintained that health all your life?
Oh, no, but when I hit 40, I had to get some glasses finally. But I was able to keep flying. Once they spend all that money training you, they don't throw you out of the cockpit because you need glasses.
Right.
Now, fighter pilots, you can't be wearing glasses because the G's,
Right.
pulls down off your face. You can't keep it.
Or contacts.
Or contacts, yeah.
So they have to have.
But flying a C-130, you're sitting there. There's two pilots. Get up and put it on autopilot and get up and walk around, get a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, whatever. It's not 3 G's at the max, so your glasses don't fall off. So that's not a big deal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You said Cameron Bay was like your staging area.
Yes, that's where we went.
How many troops would you transport? Hundreds? 150? I don't know how many you get in a C-130.
Oh, depends on how you pack them in. Seats, about 70. If you want to just load them on the floor, which we did quite often, you could just cram in 130. I mean, you just cram them in there.
Have you ever seen the Blue Angel?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a C-130, Fat Albert?
Yes, that's a
I
C-130.
had a chance to go up in that, and they were going to do the thing up and down and fill the G's and all this. I got bumped from the flight, but I videotaped the whole thing, and it sounded like a wild roller coaster ride. They were showing how they would come in real fast and stop, and they did the bank like this and all this fancy stuff. But I don't know if you ever had to do anything like that.
That's what we did every day.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was just normal short field landings. The 130 it's a rough field, short field takeoff airplane. You land on dirt, land on ice, land on whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, grass.
They still use it today at all?
Oh yeah, it went into production in the early 50s. You read various things, and the exact date is depending on what you read. But anyway, in the early 50s, it's never been out of production. They're still making them.
Very cool.
Yeah. Of course, they're upgraded a lot. We were flying B models, which is the second production run. And once I got back, I ended up in North Carolina, coming back from Philippines, and those were E models. So they're a little more range is all.
So you mentioned San Antonio for your training. San Antonio, Texas?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other training beyond that, or is that?
Yeah, that was for officers training school was San Antonio. And then once, because to be a pilot, you have to first be an officer. And so that was the officer part, 90-day wonder, get to come out as a second lieutenant in 90 days. And then a year of pilot training.
Call that 90-day wonder?
A 90-day wonder, yeah.
That's funny.
That's an old Army term, because they did the same thing. The Army has the same 90 days you're an officer, An officer and gentleman, supposedly.
You have to have college?
College, oh yeah. Yeah.
Graduate from college?
You have to be a college graduate, yes.
So you're mentioning OTS. I thought it was OCS. It's
Army, it's OCS. Air Force calls it OTS.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. Wow. So you still fly today at all?
No, it's too expensive. I can't afford it. And we flew 5 or 6 hours every day, and kind of got my fill, I guess.
So when you fly commercially now, is it a big deal? Is it kind of like,
Nah, just nothing. Yeah, no big deal.
What about if you're bouncing around in turbulence? It doesn't bother you?
Well, yeah, I know what it is, so I don't worry about it.
What do you mean you know what it is? What is it?
Turbulence?
Yeah.
Oh, just the winds.
You're not going to fall down to the ground.
Yeah,
right?
you're not going to fall on the ground.
Even
Yeah.
when it's really bad.
And it's not going to break the wings off, and the engines aren't going to fall off, and which we flew on the edge of a typhoon once, flying from Philippines into. Actually, it was coming back from Vietnam back to the Philippines, and there was a typhoon out there in the South China Sea. We had to kind of circle around it, so we got kind of fairly close to the edge, and you're sitting there bouncing along. Another funny story: you look out at the wings, and they're sitting there just flopping up and down. So I quit looking out there. I didn't look out there anymore. Yeah, but
They're built for that.
oh, they're built for that. Yeah.
So do you leave a plane in autopilot when you go through turbulence? And just
Oh yeah,
ride
just
through it?
yeah, just let it ride through it. Yeah.
Is Veterans Day special to you?
Not really.
How come? I mean, it's a time when our country comes together and
Yeah,
as a whole country. But Veterans Day is every day for me, by the way.
yeah, that's kind of the way I feel too.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
It's kind of hypocritical, maybe, just to take one day.
Yeah, I take one day and I kind of loop it into most of the other holidays, supposedly, you know, Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, and they're just a day for everything, and they're supposed to be special. And Veterans Day, not so much, but all those others are kind of a way for businesses to sell stuff, because you got to go buy a gift every time these things come up. So I'm kind of, you don't do that for Veterans Day, of course, but still, you know, I put the flag out on the house, that kind of thing.
So when you're in Vietnam, you were there, I mean, you know, fighting for your country. Looking back now, I mean, that was a pretty meaningful time in your life to be in Vietnam during that time? I mean, was that meaningful for you or not?
Pretty much.
Were you caught up in all the
No,
going on over there and here back in the States and all this stuff?
No, of course, it got caught up in that in college. We got all that. So once I got over there, I saw the situation and what was happening, and I felt like, yeah, we needed to be there. Unfortunately, the politicians at the time, Johnson in particular, wouldn't let us win. They had so many restrictions on us, we couldn't win. And but we didn't lose the war in Vietnam. We lost it here in the States, you know. So yeah, we needed to be there, and we should have stayed and should have been allowed to go ahead and win. You know, a little tiny country like North Vietnamese couldn't beat the United States if we didn't let them. But
what was the worst thing you had to do or saw, or the hardest situation for you during Vietnam when you were there?
oh, bringing the wounded and the dead back out. That was a big part of what we did around the aerobacs. And you take a whole plane load full of live troops in and healthy, and bring back shot up and mangled and tired, and you know, that's kind of the toughest part. They kind of played that up in the film I saw, a documentary film, which I knew most of the guys that were in that film, by the way. I flew with them. But they made a big deal. They had one body in a body bag, and they kind of played that up as a big traumatic thing, but that was kind of a routine mission, and it was never just one. You know, it's multiple body bags. And not always Americans. We brought back the ARVN too, you know.
To Cam Ranh?
Or usually Saigon, one of the airports at Saigon. There were 2 airports there, and that's where the big in-country morgue was, I guess you call it. It's not what they call it, but anyway.
So would you have anything to do with these bodies, or you just were the pilot and somebody else was loading them, or did you go back and inspect it, or were you aware of what you were taking?
Oh, of course, we always knew what we were carrying, and although I didn't have to pick up the litter and bring them on board or anything, but.
Was there a degree of honor of flying these young guys?
Oh yes, there were strict rules on how we treated it, and for instance, I had to be loaded head toward the front of the airplane, that kind of thing, and yeah, there was always, you know, except for the let's see what it is. Except for fate or whatever, there go I, you know, type of thing. It could be any one of us the next time.
Was there any, this sounds kind of corny, but was there any kind of ritual they would perform during this process?
No.
Okay.
No, it's pretty.
But I mean, they identified the bodies, they're going home or wherever?
Yes, they were all identified by the time we got them, you know.
Were they on their way home then, when you transported them? Were they starting their trek home?
Yes, we picked them up, and then they went to, like, say, the morgue, wherever that was, where they were embalmed and all that, whatever else they did to there.
Do you ever think about that all these years later, who these guys were, their families, or anything like that? Do you ever?
Oh, there's so many that, you know, we lost a lot of people over there, so.
did it ever get routine? I mean, you said it was kind of routine, but I mean, these are,
It is and it isn't.
yeah.
Yeah, both ways. It's something, it's part of the job, and yet, yeah.
Did it ever get to you?
Just once, and that was a Vietnamese, very high ranking apparently, because he was already in a casket, and his wife and 2 young children were accompanying it, and that was kind of tough.
On the C-130?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we took him from somewhere down south Saigon, somewhere maybe to Da Nang or so, I can't remember, away or somewhere like that.
Well, that's a thought I've never had. We've got the Vietnam Wall, we've got the national cemeteries. Where do they bury all these ARVNs? Over in Vietnam?
No idea. Yeah.
They probably have a cemetery over there.
I must have, yeah, I don't know. Although they're not, of course, the other side won, so those ARVN were traitors, I guess. So they're probably not buried in some national cemetery anywhere. I really don't know.
Now, you mentioned you weren't shot down or anything. You're shot at, I mean, but were you ever scared about your missions or your transports? Or, I mean, was there a degree of fear, or you just kind of like?
No, you can't worry about that. Like I say, most of the threat was accident versus, so it's just, every time you go out and fly, there's a chance something could go wrong. But here in the States, we lost more planes in the States than we do ever anywhere else, just on routine training missions.
You stay in touch with any of the people you served with?
No. Now they scattered, and of course you change. I shouldn't say that. Yes, of course I do. We have some good friends. But he lives in Colorado, as a matter of fact.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What part?
In around the academy, whatever town that is.
Colorado Springs?
Colorado Springs, yeah. Yeah, he's still there.
Oh.
So, yeah, but he's the only one I keep in touch with. We have some friends, other bases. Yeah, Christmas cards every year. There's quite a few. None of them were from Vietnam, though, in the unit there. They're all from later units.
Tell me in the Air Force, I don't know if it's a company or a division or battalion or a bomb group or flight group. Tell me who were you with? I mean, what bomb group or? Did I say that right? You know what I'm saying.
Squadron is what you.
34th.
Squadron is what you're looking for.
Squadron.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. Let's see, at Pope Air Force Base, which is Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That was the 41st Squadron.
41st Squadron.
And 62nd Squadron in Little Rock Air Force Base, and those are the two flying places I was. And 62nd, that was twice. I was assigned there and went somewhere else for 5 years and ended up back in 62nd again to finish up my 20 years.
62nd?
Yeah.
Squadron,
yeah.
So there's no other designation like?
Oh, there's a wing, but
Okay, well, that's okay.
314th.
And you're like a captain, or what are you?
I was a major when I got out. Yeah.
So
Which is, yeah.
I'm interested in these troops. I mean, did you have any interaction with the troops? I mean, they were all young. It's kind of like, did you ever think that these guys are going into battle? Like you said, you brought them over like that, then you took them out. I mean, did you ever have interaction with any of these troops? Or, hi, I'm the pilot, or how you doing, or how's it going, or are you scared, or?
No, they usually wasn't time for that.
Oh,
Unless you load them up and you get going. We'd make as many as 7 or 8 sorties a day, which means you land, you take off, you land again, and almost immediately. Vietnam's a small country. It didn't take very long to get from one end to the other.
right.
So about the longest flight we had was an hour and a half from one end to the other if you did that, but most of them were 30 minutes, 40 minutes, sometimes even less than that, depending on where you're going.
But your base was in the Philippines? Is that what you said? That's your actual base? Or?
That was where the wing was based, yes.
Okay.
And the reason for all the C-130s were based outside the Vietnam, outside the country. And we had a wing with 3 squadrons, which squadrons are 16 airplanes. A wing with 3 squadrons in Philippines, another wing with 3 squadrons in Taiwan, and another one in Okinawa. And we flew out of Cameron Bay. the ones from Taiwan flew out of Tan Son Nhut in Saigon, and the ones out of Okinawa also flew out of Saigon, I think. I'm not real sure where they flew out of, but they were flying A models. Not nearly as many of those as what we had, the Bs and the C and the Es.
I don't think you suffered from post-traumatic stress like a lot
No.
of these guys, so
No.
I won't get into that. But are you proud that you're a veteran of our country?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, it was I never had any problem with them. They paid well, they treated me well. You know, it was a good experience. It's gonna say I got drafted. I never intended to be in for 20 years. I went in and did my 6 years, and I got out. Carter was in the presidency at that time, and he just cut the military really way back. And the Vietnam was over. They didn't need me anymore. You know, they were forcing people out of the service. It's called a rift and riffing. And so I went in, my time was up, so I got out. That was what I had always intended to do. And 5 years later, almost to the day, I had to go back in. They recalled us. I thought I was out. It turns out I was the inactive reserve. I got a letter from them every year. Want to know where I was, did I have any, what kind of job was I doing, had I gone back to school, got any more training, that, you know, just keeping track of me.
Sure.
And so they had a voluntary recall. I didn't have to go if I didn't want to. It didn't get that bad if I was subject to being, in effect, drafted again if the need really arose. But, and they quite a carrot attached to coming back. You come in at your former rank. All the time you were out counted as time and grade, which didn't matter for retirement, but it did matter for pay. So even though, say, you're a captain, there are several grades a captain depending on your time in service for pay grade. So that all counted. So I came back in as a captain again at the highest captain pay grade there was, which, you know, like I said, they paid well. And I had to sign up for another 4 years. And so by then I've got a total of 10 in. My gosh, 10 years, I'm too old now to get another job for any kind of retirement. So I might as well stay another 10 and at least have retirement. So that's I kind of accidentally ended up being a 20-year military guy.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd never heard anybody else with that story that happened that way. If another 6 months, I probably would have told them no.
Yeah.
Because I just moved back to Phoenix and was working in a grocery store chain that was expanding rapidly, and they needed people. Mm-hmm. And I probably would have been a manager of in a grocery store by then, or at least assistant manager or some. Started up in that corporate thing.
Right.
Because my degree was management.
Tell me what the American flag means and represents to you as a veteran and as a citizen.
No, it's just a symbol. It's like any other symbol. I'm not, you know, I stand up and when it comes by in a parade and all that kind of stuff, but it's a symbol of what the country is. And
what does freedom mean to you?
oh, after seeing what it's like everywhere else in the world, what a difference. Really glad I born in this country, you know, versus anywhere else. All the people that complain, boy, they just haven't been around seeing what it's like elsewhere. That's one of the biggest eye openers, and plus you're not stuck at where you're born. You have the freedom to make anything. You can do it. You're not, just because you're born to a blue-collar family, you don't have to stay there. And most societies, what you're born into, that's where you are. You know, it's not, you know, India is the only country that has a caste system that they're actually labeled a caste, but every country has that. You know, just not quite as formal. And in America, it doesn't. Even though we have middle class, lower class, still here in this country, you're not stuck there.
Yeah.
You know. Go where you want, live where you want. You know, it's.
So what do you think you'll do on Veterans Day? Just stay home, or?
I don't do anything special. I put the flag out, and a lot of the stuff they're doing nowadays, all of a sudden veterans are great people. You know, why is that different than it was right after Vietnam when we were all, you know, mud under their boots or whatever? You know, it's treated very badly at that time, and all of a sudden now we're all heroes. And
That's an interesting observation. That's true.
yeah.
I think we're about done. Is there anything, I know you didn't have a lot of information about coming today, but you probably were thinking a little bit about your experience, but is there maybe something I didn't ask you that maybe you were going to tell me today? Or I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Have you ever told a story like this before with your family? Or
No, I keep pretty quiet about it because nobody else understands. There's a lot of things that happen in the stories, but telling it to somebody that wasn't there or hasn't ever been in the military, they don't get it. So I usually just don't bother. There were a lot of things that happened. You know, the sapper got in and blew up the ammo dump in Cameron Bay one night, and so that was pretty interesting. But unless you have been around an explosion or something, that doesn't, you know, the walls shake when the big rack of bombs would go off and scare the heck out of you. But you know, and in fact, you want that story? I don't mind telling it to you in this context.
yeah, well, did anybody get hurt or killed in that? What happened?
No.
You said a sapper, what'd you say?
A sapper, you know, he came in off the water. They were able to track him the next day, but at night off the coast, our barracks was right on the beach, and you look out in the ocean and it's full of lights. Just the fishing boats all had a little lantern on the fishing boats to attract the fish, I guess, or maybe just so they could see, the fishermen could see. But anyway, they were out there, and I put a little slideshow together and took it to the schools, you said, and told them about it. And the very last picture in the slideshow was a machine gun nest sitting there looking out at the ocean. And I said, and we slept well at night because these guys were guarding us all night. Well, a guy got past them, and blew up, set charges, and blew up the ammo dump. Well, they just unloaded a ship that day. And so the bombs, 1,000-pound bombs, were sitting in racks. I don't know, 6 or 10 or however many at a time they did that coming off the ship, and they're out in the open. They weren't in the bunkers yet. And so when one of those, all of them went off at once, just a huge explosion. The first we knew about it is boom, the walls shake, and we were in barracks with 1-inch boards on the outside of the walls and just exposed studs, and just shook. Your eyes come open, you're laying there, and first thing, okay, I'm all still here, I'm not hurt, because you figure there was a mortar attack and it landed right outside. It was that loud, and we were exposed. There was a really thick concrete wall around the lower half. We were up in the second half, and it only came up to the waist. It wasn't, so what, the whole building wasn't protected at all, and we were in bunk beds. So we're pretty well exposed, and okay, first thing, I'm still here, and where's the next two? They always came in threes, and the other two didn't come. So I went back to sleep, and pretty quick, woke up again. Okay, I got up that time. First thing, you know, I'm still all here. Everything's on. Nothing's on fire. Nobody's screaming. There was no sound. Nobody. There was no talking. There was no nothing. Just an explosion and nothing. So finally, I said, okay, I got to go out. So I went outside, and nothing. Walked down into the building. I could hear people talking. So they're down there on the landing, the stairs going down the second landing, with their cameras on tripods, just like that, looking out across the way, and you could see, you couldn't hear it. You could still look across the bay, across the water, and the ammo dump was there, and there's nothing between us and them. And you could see the flashes and the fire smoke going up, and all of a sudden there'd be a and what you saw was a shock wave. It's just a big dome going out, all an expanding dome, and you can see it coming across the water. And when it got to us, you know, just like somebody hammering at a distance, you see the hammer, and a little bit later you hear the sound. That's the same thing with this. You can see the shock wave coming, and of course it's humid, it's jungle, tropics, so the shock wave coming through the air, the humidity, you see it, and so that's what it was. And okay, that's all it is. So I think I went back to bed before it was all over. But the next day, they got all excited, and we all got flak vests, we all got helmets, we all got a gas mask. You know, after the close the door after the horses get out, type of thing. You know, too late, but they gave us all this stuff. They wouldn't give us any guns, and afraid we'd shoot each other, which is probably be right. You know, somebody get to playing around with a gun if they gave us guns, and also we found out that the guy that did it, they tracked him. He left tracks, and that's why they knew they came in off the water. But he left by land. He didn't swim back out, and he walked right between our barracks and another one. So he went by there and got away. They never did catch him, but no. So that's one of those stories. That's
scary.
Yeah, pretty scary, but it really wasn't, as it turned out. And one of our guys was in the infirmary, and he told us later that they could hear the small explosion because they were a lot closer to the ammo dump. We didn't hear the smaller explosion. We could see them, but we couldn't hear them. And he said they assumed also that it was mortars or rockets coming in. And said you'd hear them, and they seemed like they were getting closer, going to hit us next. They had them under the beds in the hospital, but they'd miss and go on because it just their imagination. Of course, all explosions were the same, but some of them were louder than others. So you process that as being a closer hit. So they thought they were going to get hit any time. So most of the night they just laid there scared in the hospital. And but I don't know when they found out it was just the ammo dump and it wasn't really mortars or rockets coming in, because that's what I assumed first too, of course. Sure. Yeah, because they're denying it was rockets, and came in threes and hit our airplane. They very accurate rocket rounds. They hit a line of airplanes lined up. Half of them were full of ammo, and they happened to hit the other end of the line that wasn't full of ammo. If they'd hit one of them full of ammo, it would have been a huge disaster. But they destroyed 3 of our airplanes that night. And of course I was asleep. But
well, I'm going to tell you, at the end of my interviews, this may sound kind of odd, but from day one, I always ask, especially the World War II veterans, I asked them to salute into the camera, just as a kind of a signature goodbye or whatever. Is that something you can do for me when I ask you, just to give a salute into the camera?
Sure, yeah, I don't mind it.
Just set the camera here. I know you're supposed to be standing up and everything, but whenever you want, just look right into there, Don, and go ahead. Perfect. All right.